Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I recently did a video about Ralph Yarl, that's the young black boy who went to the wrong address to pick up his siblings. And apparently the white homeowner was afraid of this black boy. You know, in his mind, he said he was afraid, he feared for his life. And this boy had done nothing wrong except for knock on the wrong door, ring the wrong doorbell. So within seconds of the young brother arriving at the residence, this man proceeded to shoot this brother in the arm and in the head, severely injuring the brother. He was hospitalized briefly. He has since been released and the man has been charged. For more on that particular situation, I encourage you to watch my last video. If I remember, I'll post a link in the card so that you all can check out that video. But in response to that video, one of my subscribers left an interesting comment, and I want to just take some time to respond to that comment. And this is what he said. He said, "I'm not justifying the shooting, but let's be honest. Many people are uneasy around black youth nowadays. Look at the recent incident in Chicago where all those kids roamed the streets and tore up the city." And here's what I have to say to that. You know, I recently read, well, it was a few months ago, I read this book entitled Stamped from the Beginning. And it dealt with this whole thing about what's called respectability politics. You know, this idea that somehow if black people were to behave and be model citizens, that somehow that would combat the problem of racism, that somehow that would be some kind of solution to racism and prevent incidents like what happened to Ralph Yarl from happening. And I just think that that's just wrong. That's not factual at all. It's not a question of black people being model citizens. You know, that is not why racists do what they do. The white supremacists will always have an excuse to try to justify what they're doing. They will always have some kind of rationalization for their irrational ideas and thoughts and actions. No matter how well black people behave, quote unquote, behave, even if every single black person in America was a model citizen, that would not stop the white supremacists from being racist, from terrorizing black people. You know, all we have to do is look back at history. When black people, for instance, built communities like Black Wall Street, where black people had their own, where black people were educated and providing for themselves, being quote unquote model citizens. What happened to Black Wall Street? They destroyed Black Wall Street. You know, they collectively punished black people. And that has been the history of this country. You know, even when black people were like, for instance, during the Civil Rights Movement, those brothers and sisters were very dignified. They wore suits, they wore dress shoes, they spoke the Queen's English well, and they did everything that a model citizen should do in this society. They had respect for a country that had no respect for them. They had patriotism toward a country that treated them like second-class citizens. And despite all that dignity, despite all that respectability, at the end of the day, they were still nothing but the N-word. At the end of the day, the police still went upside their heads with those billy clubs when they were simply trying to exercise their right to vote. Even at the end of the day, they were attacked by mobs of people simply for trying to eat in a restaurant, simply for trying to ride in the, integrated buses, simply for doing those kind of things. They were still brutalized and terrorized, not only by the KKK, but by the police who were supposed to protect and serve. So this has never been a question about dignity and respect. It's never been a question about black people, quote unquote, behaving well and that somehow we're to blame for how these white supremacists treat black people. I don't buy that. You know, they have invented lies about black people. And why is it that black people are the ones judged as a collective for the wrong conduct of individuals within the black community? Just because some youth in one community some individual youth in one community decide to do something wrong, that shouldn't be put on all black youth. All black youth shouldn't be judged by the actions of some black youth within the community. See, somehow black people are judged as one. When one black person does something wrong, all of a sudden everybody's judged and all that kind of stuff. And that's fundamentally wrong. Whereas white people are treated as individuals. When a white person does something wrong, all of us, they're just the individual that did something wrong. It's not as if the collective white race is judged and condemned. And we have to quit making excuses for these white supremacists. Quit trying to explain what they do. What this man did was irrational. That young brother did nothing whatsoever to warrant that kind of animosity, that kind of hatred, and that kind of fear. All the brother did was knock on somebody's door or ring somebody's doorbell. That did not warrant what happened. And I understand that you're saying that you're not trying to justify what happened and all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is that man had no excuse for what he did. If anybody should be prejudiced, it should be us, in light of the history that we have gone through in this country, in light of the fact that it was that white man that kidnapped us and brought us to this country, stripped us of our original identity. It was that white man that lynched our people for entertainment. It was like a sporting event for those people. You know, if anybody should be prejudiced, it should be us, with all the hell that we've gone through in this country. So let's stop making excuses for these people, man. You know, we are not responsible for every single thing that every individual black person does. And we should not be collectively viewed and prejudged based on the conduct of some in our community. You know, you had these white kids that shoot up schools all the time and kill all these people. Most of the time, like a lot of those mass shootings are done at the hands of young white men, but nobody is stereotyping white men as a collective and assuming that all white men are mass murderers. So they shouldn't make those these generalizations about black people. And even when black people have tried to follow along with these respectability politics and tried to live up to these westernized standards and all that kind of stuff, at the end of the day, black people were still viewed as the quote unquote N-word. In the words of Frantz Fanon, we were still viewed as the missing link between man and ape. That's how they viewed black people. And for the exceptional black people, black people that were doing extraordinary things even during slavery, like Phyllis Wheatley writing beautiful poetry and all that kind of stuff, like a Frederick Douglass and his great oratory skills. All those people, great people, even a W.E.B. Du Bois, those people were written off by the dominant society as exceptional black people. So even those positive examples of what black people could accomplish and do were just written off and brushed aside, and black people were still presented as the minstrel, as the buck dancing Sambo type of character in the minds of white supremacists. This is a mental, it's not just a mental issue, but it's just an agenda that these people have to dominate and control and oppress black people. There is no reasoning with these people. It doesn't matter what black people do, we will still be viewed as the quote unquote N-word in the minds of these people. And it's time for us to understand that. Stop trying to act like somehow if we behave, these people will treat us better. That reminds me of the situation of a woman who is a victim of domestic violence, feeling like if she just does this or does that, then maybe her abuser will stop abusing her. But in most of those situations, anything sets the abuser off. And that's our relationship with white America. That's our historical connection and relationship to this white establishment in this world. It's in a relationship of abuse. They're the abuser and we're the abused. And we need to quit making excuses for our abuser.